For a show that tonight is all about gardening and groceries, and it's bog-off night at QI. 4 comedians for the price of 2. Cutting the mustard, it's Rob Brydon. And taking the biscuit, it's Dara O'Brien. Spicing things up, it's David Mitchell. Playing catch-up, it's Alan Davies. But, before we head over to the garden to turn over the first sod, let's hear your buzzers. And Rob goes... Dara goes... David goes... And Alan goes...
Pan upon it, pan upon it. Come on, love, got a couple of juicy ones here. Go on, pan upon it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, let's get off to an easy start. What tools do you need for do-nothing gardening?
No tools.
You think? It's also called natural gardening or natural farming. It's an Eastern version of our organic farming that has actually spread around the world.
You sort of have to dig with your hands or persuade other animals to do the gardening for you.
Yes, persuade other animals.
So you sort of persuaded a fox who doesn't want a sort of den, but a rockery.
Well, in the case of paddy
get some
fields...
fish in and they desperately try and dig a pond before they die.
Well, fish is right. Well, in paddy fields, where, as I say, it started in the East, they use ducks instead of herbicide. They eat the weeds. The throttly things that kill the rice, and they use carp as well to helps purify and keep the water in the paddy fields good.
Well, this is like having a goat, isn't it?
It is like having a goat.
In the nicest sense.
Yes.
It's like having a goat, but now the goat has been usurped because the wallaby is being introduced in larger numbers now in Britain because it makes a good family pet and it eats the grass, and it's more fun than a goat. It's more intelligent.
A better family pet than that traditional family pet, the goat?
Yeah,
surely not. Surely all those Christmas mornings where children go, it's a goat!
It's true. I read about it in the paper. There's a guy who breeds them, and he says he's never been busier.
Oh. Because they hop over the fence and run away. No, that's
you
wonderful.
do have to have a very high fence, that's true.
Yes.
That's the downside of it.
You could electrify the top of the fence. It doesn't have to be that high. You just get to a... Because they are just gripping animals, aren't they? Wallabies?
That's a koala, isn't it? Surely.
They're not big climbers, famously. They're not big climbers.
Well, no, you don't need a big
bouncers, aren't they, basically? What? I don't mean in the sense of nightclubs.
Nightclub bouncers.
They're of the bouncing animals.
Yes.
As opposed to of the gripping onto animals.
Oh, yes. You blinded me with your biology talk.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's a man called Masanobu Fukuoka, responsible for do-nothing gardening. It all works very well. And he invented seed balls. Are you familiar with seed balls? You make a little ball out of clay, mud, and various, nutrients, and you just chuck it around, and it seeds.
So you put a load of seeds and some mud and something in a ball, and then just chuck it. And then leave it there to grow.
More or less.
And that's preferable to just putting some seeds wherever it will go.
Well, you chuck it where you want it to be,
right.
Obviously, yeah. But you use far fewer seeds. It's much more economical.
And is it like for planting things that were difficult otherwise to reach? Stuff on the other side of like, lava or something like that? Surely you could just walk to the point at which you would land and just plant seeds there, surely.
It's if you want, like, hanging baskets, but you haven't got a ladder. So what you do is you get a basketball player and a seed ball, and that's...
There you are.
Yeah.
Exactly. Game on. Plus there are seed guns. You familiar with a seed gun?
I'm guessing you take a seed ball and you put it into a large gun-like device and you just shoot that mother.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the pre-watershed version, but actually...
of the gang talk.
It is...
Gardening
gang
part,
talk.
yes.
The acceptable face of gangster rap.
There on the left is a seed gun. It is literally a seed ball-type mud thing, but made in the shape of a gun.
Why would you do that?
Well, imagine that you are citizens of Richmond, Virginia, and your murder rate has gone up so far, you're casting about for some way of trying to suggest peaceful uses of guns. So you make a mud gun with seeds in it to plant flowers of hope.
But
I mean, the flowers arrive up in the shape of a gun. Sure, that's...
Well, slightly, as you can see on the
that's
right.
promoting a gun. You could have a kind of gangster rapper, and he's thinking, I'm trying to put the gangsters, the guns behind me. Then he sees the flower bed, and he thinks, a gun, what a great idea.
And how convenient. A bullet tree.
It's the equivalent of turning your swords into ploughshares, or the famous 60s image of the hippie putting a flower down the barrel of a tank, I suppose. But guerrilla gardening is a similar thing. Do you know about guerrilla gardening?
Guerrilla gardening is that where people take random patches of land which they don't own and garden on them.
Yeah.
Is that what people do?
Exactly.
Because they know... Thank you. That's, you know, that's not confusing to anyone.
No. Didn't you hear me say guerrilla?
That is just compounding the problem for young people watching the show who for years have been thrilled by the words guerrilla warfare. And going, how do they
I mean,
train
that was it. As a child, watching the news, half the time they're telling you about the gorillas that are going extinct, and the other time it's about all the guerrilla fighters killing people. So I go, well, I'd be quite glad when the gorillas are extinct, actually.
It's sending the wrong message, isn't it?
In America, there's a major problem for the drugs enforcement agencies that people were growing cannabis on that kind of land on the edge, on the ramp onto a motorway, land you couldn't normally get to. People would use that land and grow cannabis on it.
You would be disappointed to hear that one anonymous guerrilla gardener planted 3,400 marijuana seedlings in the grounds of the Californian estate owned by Rupert Murdoch. Yes, that's very irresponsible, isn't it?
There's a hell of a lot of guerrillaing about, though.
There is
3,000 plants.
Yeah, that is an extraordinary... It started supposedly in 1973 in New York. Vancouver is one of the places where it's really taken off because a load of compost was dumped in the street by construction workers and a local inadvertently emptied all his birdseed onto the same dump, and it flowered so extraordinarily that now almost any spare piece of land is used as a garden in Vancouver. It's a good thing, isn't it? But I've got some props for you, which is more connected with the principle of the gentleman gardener, which was a familiar 18th and 19th century pastime to be a gentleman gardener. You can have that or pass it on. There you are. And on your side, you've got props. Isn't it exciting to have props? Physical, actual props. There you are.
I can see where we're going with this.
Yeah. So who's going to go first?
Well, everybody's been given fascinating devices, and I've been given a bottle with the top cut off.
That was designed by George Stephenson of the rocket fame. Was it? The first locomotive, yeah.
And it's to do with the garden?
It is to do with the garden. He was a very keen gardener.
What did he make most money out of? That or the... the train?
I think the train was a bigger hit.
Right.
But he was a very keen gentleman gardener.
I bet he was really tedious and wouldn't talk about the train in interviews and would insist on talking about his bloody...
I feel you're right.
In many ways, it's the work I'm proudest of. Yeah, but it's crap. It's just a bit of glass with no top.
Well,
it would protect some seedling.
You've got sunlight, I think, is an important factor here, the sunlight, because you've got glass. And what does glass do? It can magnify, Stephen, can't it?
Yes, it can.
Diffraction with it, can't we?
Yeah,
okay.
Or refraction.
Refraction, whatever. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's not get bogged down in that.
Yeah, quite.
We're here to talk about gardening.
No, I'm silly, I'm sorry.
Hello.
No, not... You found out... No.
It's a saw.
It is. It's for a gentleman gardener.
It's got a concealed serrated blade. You won't get this through customs. You can hijack a plane with one of these. I can't make it work, though. Why won't it go forward? It'll only go that way.
Well, that's how you start the stroke.
That's how you start sawing.
It won't go back again.
Have you ever used a saw?
I don't think it's designed for exercise books.
No, there is that too. David has a point. It's for the gentleman No!
I want to saw something now.
These are long. I just want to say... to us by the Garden Museum.
It works, it works.
Oh, it really does!
Oh, my God!
Hope it doesn't break.
I tell you what, I really wish they hadn't made this set out of asbestos.
Brilliant.
That's a very good invention.
It's for the gentleman who's walking along and he sees an overhanging limb of a tree or overhanging limb of a person, for that matter, and decides to... Oh, no! What have I done? No! That's... Oh.
It's only plastic.
Yeah. And see if you can tidy it away, class. See if you can do that. It's my clever psychology.
Clever, isn't it?
Let's see if you're clever enough to hide that sword. Brilliant.
Well, that was great fun. You got any more?
No, well, David, you've got yours.
Well, yes, no, I don't know. I mean, it's like...
Yours actually is missing a piece. The Garden Museum, to whom we're very grateful for lending us these incredibly valuable artefacts, this would have had a sort of hat in order to make it like a walking stick, a sort of leathern thing around there.
Oh, so you could hold it like that?
You hold it as a walking stick, and then when you see some obtrusive weeds, you turn it around, and almost like a golf club, you...
Just a little hoe.
Yeah, you just hoe.
Yeah.
A little hoe.
Yeah.
Not in the street sense
No.
that's used in the United States and America.
Which is the sense I usually use that syllable in.
Yes, actually. So, talking of hoes, Rob.
It doesn't...
Oh, hello.
Sorry,
How did that happen?
a fly landed on my buzzer and I tried to use my little hoe.
My little hoe. It's a new sort of toy for children,
Yeah.
isn't it? So what's your little hoe for?
Well, I've absolutely no idea, other than I think it's something to do with light.
Well, it's not bad. It actually forces a shape. What sort of shape would something in there have to be?
A bottle.
Oh, a vegetable.
It would have to be a straight vegetable, though, wouldn't it?
So,
Is it for
cucumbers?
For cucumbers, for growing straight cucumbers.
Points and I've mended my walking stick.
Yes, points all round for Alan Davis. There you are.
Now, that thing up there, though, Stephen, it may well be for cucumbers, but that picture there is very similar to a spam email that I get sent. And I have to say, I'll tell you now, don't waste your money, it doesn't work.
Dara, what have you got?
I am guessing that you put a mixture of seeds in of different sizes, because there are little holes of different sizes, and then if you're the kind of person who knows what size seed you need, then you just sprinkle it.
You're
In the most
exactly...
effete gardening way imaginable. There you go. And we're in the company of which actual gardens would be going, oh, well done, my lad, that's really top-quality gardening you're doing there.
I'm rather exhausted now. I think I may have to go in and have a cocktail.
I'm having a fit of the vapours from my gardening.
So, Do Nothing Gardening, where we started, is small-scale organic farming with minimal inputs. Guerrilla gardening is prettying up the hood, and a jolly good thing, too. Now, before we move on, we'd like you to draw now. You should have a card if you haven't sawn it in half. We'd like you to draw the world's first novelty teapot. Alan?
Sorry, it all went... it's quite a draft in here, it turns out.
What did I ask you to draw?
Draw the world's first novelty teapot.
Damn, you were listening. That's very good.
It's gone out that side, but when you asked me, it was still in the middle.
All right, well, get drawing.
The world's first? You mean we're inventing one? Or there is one that we should know about?
This is nice. I like it when the class get on with their business. They're busy and quiet.
Teacher sits at the front just texting her friends.
Do you know that rhyme? I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle. Oh, bugger, I'm a sugar bowl. How are you doing? Is everyone ready to show yet? Yes, David, you look as if you finished.
Yeah, I have finished. I'm very pleased with it.
Is it an Indian goddess or a crab?
It's a novelty teapot.
Oh, yes, sorry.
It's instructed, but I thought they have a lot of tea in India, and their vague goddess is a bit like that. And one thing, the best bit, the sort of business end of a teapot is the spout. So someone might have invented one with lots of spouts.
A multiple spouted teapot.
You'd have to pretty much surround it. And that's that thing on the front that looks like an ear, which is not an ear, that's the sort of...
The handle.
The handle.
Does it come with a cream to treat scalding and burns?
No, but it came in a society in which the burning of various members of it was not considered important by those in charge.
Good point. Good satirical point. What have you got then, Rob?
What I've done is I've come up with a thing called handy tea. So it's a teapot. This actually, all jokes aside, this could be a goer. This... And the finger is cocking a snook to authority, so that'll appeal to the youngsters. But the rest of it, and I've called it handy tea.
Yes.
Which finger exactly?
That's the thumb.
That's
weird...
No. You're absolutely...
Yeah,
it's a very
weird...
long... Unless it's the left hand...
Which has got 5 fingers.
You're absolutely right, yes. It's not anatomically correct.
No, that's
It's only a prototype.
Anatomically correct. Contents may differ upon delivery. Right, anyway, but I think you'd have to agree there's something for everyone in
I
there.
think it's very wise of you to have signed it.
Yes, I have.
If you hadn't, I would have nicked that idea. I'd probably leave the recording at this point to
make your
capitalise on it.
Dara, what have you got?
It's supposed to be an Egyptian character.
Oh, yes.
See, I thought you wanted the first one. I want some historical. And the Egyptian character is doing the traditional Egyptian hieroglyphic thing, but that it pours out of his arm.
That's very clever.
Now, fortunately, I don't know. I can't draw Egyptian clothes, so I've made him wear a small tuxedo. And a little dicky bow. So he's an Egyptian on the way to some sort of black tie event, maybe the opening of a pyramid.
And you've not only signed it, you've actually put a copyright notice on
just
it
in case that isn't the correct answer. I think it's actually...
Superb.
I just say to David, I've also now copyrighted it.
Ah, very good. Well done. You have to put the date if you copyright something. So, yeah.
Do you think I should copyright mine? Or do you think...
I
wouldn't bother.
I'd say save the ink.
Alan, what have you got?
So now what I've done is I've done a bloke with a beak, and he's... It's a long, tall pot.
Oh, yes.
You can feel the feet as well. It'll stand there. That's his arm. And then it'll all come out of his...
That works.
Beak, and then his little baseball cap, that's the lid. The only drawback here is you will need long, thin tea bags.
I think that's going to be a hell of a difficult thing to clean.
But you shouldn't clean a teapot.
Don't clean a teapot.
You don't clean a teapot,
You should never
David.
clean a teapot.
No.
Under no circumstance. No, well, okay.
Being used as a teapot.
If you came in and couldn't find the loo one night...
I have only...
Follow the hunch, but I sense a hypothetical situation.
This is not a hypothetical situation. I've only ever used a teapot for tea. But occasionally, if you make sort of tea in a teapot once in a blue moon when you can be bothered in a vague attempt to seem more civilised than you actually are, you then sort of leave, still got a bit of tea in
you
it.
left
some
it to
tea
go
cold.
cold.
you rinse it
leave
out.
No, you don't rinse it out because
it
you forget,
stains.
because immediately you're tired of being civilised and you want to go to the pub. You leave it there for weeks and weeks and months, and then when you have a look in it, it's gone disgustingly mouldy.
And it's talking to you.
Yeah.
At that point, the flavour that you would get if you didn't wash it from your next cup of tea is, if anything, too characterful.
What do you think the actual, real-life first novelty teapots might have been in the shape of? You've probably seen them. They've since become very popular.
Like a Toby jug or something?
Not quite that so much as cauliflowers and pineapples and things like that. That's the classic sort. But that was very early. We're talking about Queen Anne's time, early 1700s.
Oh, mine's much better than that.
Yes, it probably is. Anyway, we probably ought to move on. Where's the best place in the world to discover an entirely new species?
The National Geographic Channel.
Maybe.
They're at the forefront.
Do you think you might spot something on the edge of shot that the documentary makers have? See, they're going on about that monkey or whatever, but that's a totally new sort of caterpillar.
What about the Amazon rainforest, where they're discovering new things all the time? Kent.
Yes, that would do.
Kent?
Kent would do. Basically, your own garden. You may say, now, how? There won't be anything in my garden that hasn't been discovered. You would be amazed. In 1971, Jennifer Owen, a biologist, did a very long-term study of her ordinary garden in a suburban house in Leicester. She discovered 533 species of ichneumon wasp. Just that family of parasitic wasps. 15 of these had never been recorded in Britain. 4 of them were completely new to science in a suburban garden. So in your garden, if you have a garden, there will be things. Gilbert White, the naturalist, said, nature is so full and so varied that if you want to find the place with the most variety, it's the place you most study. It almost doesn't matter. Just take a piece of land and look at it hard enough, you will see things that...
You're still going rainforest, I'm sorry.
Yes, but you'd have to travel thousands of miles, you'd have to park there, you'd have to look, you'd have to, you know...
Park?
The point... Yes.
Everyone knows it's a nightmare parking.
I'm slightly worried that my brain let me say that.
Where?
The congestion charge alone would just drives up the cost of research horrendously.
Nonetheless.
How did she catch these wasps? Did she put a jam jar with jam in it and a little hole that's big enough for them to get in but not get back out? Because that's what we do in our house.
Do you?
Every wasp likes a bit of jam because it's sweet. They love sugary things, as do I.
You know when you find a bee and it's crawling on its last legs?
I always rescue them.
You give it honey. It's the only thing they eat. Makes sense when you think about it. No point just talking to it, give it honey.
They're very much a one-recipe species,
I'm intrigued because I generally give it the sole of my shoe, but you know, not to be harsh, but you know,
I tread on a struggling, crawling bee, trying to get back to the hive.
What? As opposed to rehabilitate it?
I like honey. I have it on my porridge. You murderer.
Yeah, but
You depend on bees.
We need the bees.
okay, so in future I should lure the bee back. And sorry, do I get a syringe of honey, just a tiny amount of honey? How do I feed this
Teaspoon of honey.
disabled
Leave
bee?
it with the honey. Don't tread on it. It should be criminal offence.
but-
You should be arrested. You should be locked up. You know where? In a hive.
But isn't it true, though, that a bee in his entire lifetime makes an absolutely tiny amount of honey overall? I mean, just a
But they're just
minute
lots
amount
of
of
them.
honey.
Yeah, but
they're
So you
team
don't
players.
have to give much rehabilitating honey to this one bee
So
before the nation, the world, is making a net loss from that bee. You know, it's useless. If you only get 1 teaspoon of honey from a whole bee's lifetime, and every time we have to get it back on its feet, it takes a teaspoon and a half, suddenly there's no honey at all.
This is more honey than this bee has seen in its life.
Yeah.
It's just gonna,
You're insulting it, apart from
Maybe
anything
give
else.
it-
It's like showing a very tired mason a whole cathedral.
Maybe...
Well, let's say that you're in between Alan and Dara. So, like Alan, you want to help the bee give it honey, but like Dara, you also want to kill. What you can do is you get what I would term too much honey, and you see the bee, and you pour molten... Look, hear me out.
All right, OK.
And then you watch him die a slow... as
Yeah,
he...
I carry on with... Yes, I've now heard you out.
Yes.
And it's no better.
Well, no, that's
worse. That's much worse than what I did.
Torturing
You're
a
being
bee.
humane, are you?
Yeah, I am being...
You're not. You're getting a kick out of it.
Let's forget
I'm
that.
not drowning the bee ironically in honey. You want some honey?
bees.
You want some honey?
You can't
How much
drown
honey
them.
do you want? Is this too much honey?
Yeah.
Straight
Oh,
to
not so keen on the honey now, are you, after your lifetime making honey?
You may try and drown bees, Dara, but I will follow you.
It wasn't Dara who wanted to drown the bee.
Yes, it was.
My
He's a
scenario.
bee drowner.
He wanted to smash it with his shoe.
He wanted to tread on it.
It is a bee in a bath. I don't then go, right, get the shoe. Splishy, splashy, splishy, splashy.
Your murder is based on circumstances.
If there's a bee that looks as if it's on its way out and it's just going that...
You are like the Swiss surgery of beekeeping, aren't you?
Essentially, yes.
You are trying to give them dignity.
I
Yeah.
am dignitas for bees.
Dignibuzz is what you are. Dignibuzz.
And then I do turn to people and go, it's what the bee would have
Wanted. Very good. Well, thank you for that interesting, fierce, and I think productive debate. Very pleased with that. We're going to move on now, but the best place, as you didn't quite point out, to find a new species or plant or animal is in your back garden. Who finds garden gnomes attractive?
I do, and it's lovely. It's lovely to get the opportunity to be able to admit it in public.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
We knew you too well, Rob. We knew that an Anne Widdecombe gnome would just immediately appeal to you.
Her bikini is a little bit too small for her. There's actually a little bit of overhang there.
But she's had a Brazilian, which is thoughtful.
I hate when the gnomes when it goes out.
Yeah, no, you don't. The sprouting gnome is not a good thing, no, definitely. When did gnomes first arrive in British Gardens, do you know?
1922.
But earlier than that, actually. 1847. And there was a strange man called Charles Isham, who was a vegetarian spiritualist, who believed that putting ornamental garden gnomes into a garden would attract real gnomes. That was his
Did he wish to try and kill real gnomes?
No, he wanted to commune with them. He wanted to commune with them. He said seeing and hearing gnomes is not mental delusion, but extension of faculty.
It's a nice try, isn't it? It's lovely being clever when you're mental.
Yes. This man, Charles Isham, he introduced 21 porcelain gnomes, of which one still exists, and there it is. It's the original garden gnome in the first one ever. It's been insured for some £1 million. The red cap, which is a feature of all gnomes, it seems, and you may think there is a family resemblance to that chap and Doc or one of the other dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they were based on this idea that German gnomes, or whatever you want to call them, dwarves, had these red caps because they were miners, and German miners wore red caps. There were in Wastwater or Wastwater in the Lake District. There were at 48 metres, there were a whole load of gnomes set deep down for divers to look at. 3 people drowned, apparently, trying to go and look for them, so the police came and took them away. And the gnome garden was put back at 50 metres this time deep, just 2 metres deeper, and the police didn't take it away. Can you imagine why that would be? If they took it away when it was 48 metres and 3 people had drowned, why would they then leave it?
Maybe it's a visibility thing.
Good effort, but no. It's too far for the police divers. The police divers' health and safety people won't let the police dive that low, so the police couldn't recover them from that depth.
That is funny, actually.
It is. It somehow is.
Can you imagine, though, if you're able to, and you don't mind the sort of risk, why would you choose to do it in a place where instead of seeing, a coral reef or fantastic wonders of the deep, all you can see is some manky old gnomes?
I think the idea was that the lake was incredibly dull and that people who were practising diving, it was just something to make the little bit brighter and more interesting.
Really nice thing to see in diving trips, and I've dived for years, that most of you are a long way away.
That's the problem.
In hot countries where you have to fly there and stay in hotels and stuff. So if you want to dive while you're here, there's really very little to see.
In the dive centre in Leicester, there's a big quarry, and they've put an old aeroplane in it and a bus.
Yeah. Of course, in Scapa Flow, there's a scuttled German fleet for you to go and investigate, if you wanted to.
That was the
bit chilly,
end of the war, end of the First World War, wasn't it?
Right.
The Allies were all arguing about who were to get this fleet, and we wanted to have the fleet because we had the biggest fleet, and so it made sense to us.
And Mummy said, if you're going to argue about it, then no one will get the fleet. And it was scuttled.
I didn't know that we sunk the French fleet.
We did, yes. That was much to the annoyance of Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the Germans would have got hold of it.
Also, you don't get many opportunities to sink the French fleet. And, when the French fleet is just sitting there and it's not going to return
It was
fire,
more of an old English
you kind of go, look, we've got the French fleet, it's just there. I've got to sink it. We never mind that we're at war with Germany, but still, it's the French fleet. We will kick ourselves.
Where was the French fleet when this happened?
It's off the coast of Morocco.
So why didn't you just sail it to England?
We said sail it to England. It was full of French sailers who refused to sail it to England, as they always will.
Well, option B was, well, let's just sink the boat.
Yeah.
How was it not explained to them that the only other option was...
The third option was to drown them in honey, but we couldn't, couldn't get enough honey there in time, so...
Yeah, a black chapter amongst many other black chapters in that sad, melancholy period of history, the war. But, on that melancholy note, the man who brought garden gnomes to England did so in the hope of attracting some real gnomes to his garden. Why do American farmers, gentlemen, hate Shakespeare? There's a picture of American farmers hating Shakespeare. Something to do with Shakespeare caused immense trouble to American farming. It's not Shakespeare's fault at all.
Not some farming practice that's hidden away in the sonnets or something?
It was an eccentric drug manufacturer called Eugene Schieffelin, and he decided that America should contain examples of every bird species named in the works of Shakespeare. And one particular species didn't exist in America. And he thought, oh, I'll introduce these. He introduced 100 to Central Park, and there are now estimated something like 200 million of them.
It's not the common pigeon, is it?
No, they come in huge flocks.
Starlings. Ducks.
Starlings is the right answer. Starlings.
And they don't like them because they eat the seeds?
They eat seeds and they eat everything that's...
Could they eat
fruit.
a seed ball or a seed gun, though?
Well,
not.
Maybe that's
Point
the
the
future.
seed gun at them and I think they fly away.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what they do is they befoul everything in their droppings that they don't eat. They're such huge flocks. Vast flocks.
I was on Brighton Pier one time, and there are lots of starlings there, and at dusk they do that.
They're beautiful.
And it's really amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's a
if you stand on the
sight.
pier. And then someone said that starlings come from hundreds of miles away to join in this coastal flocking.
Yeah.
And they come from as far away as Germany and Poland.
A lot of the Polish ones are coming over here now and taking away a lot of the... a lot of the British starlings' jobs. You'll see a lot of British starlings just sat on the prom like this, bloody typical.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're the lazy British starlings who don't want to work.
Why don't they just get up and join in, you know? But they won't, will they? It's typical, typical.
No, you're right. The flocks are up to 1 million, some of them. I mean, enormous flocks.
And are they just having fun? Or is it a good way of eating?
No, in the case of fish, I know that what they're really doing is presenting, as it were, an enormous fish that sort of glistens and frightens some predators, and in other cases it confuses and dazzles. And so they're a lot safer than...
Starlings are basically scared of sharks.
I'm not so sure about the
shark might leap out of the West Pier.
You may laugh, but when was a starling last killed by a shark?
That's true.
So it works. You're absolutely right. It's 100%. It is 100% starkly proven that this shall keep us safe from sharks. Come on, boys. Fum! And they're like that.
So, good, excellent. Starlings were brought to America in an attempt to introduce all the birds in Shakespeare to the US. They're now a major pest, which is correct of these grocers, or grocers. It's grocers apostrophe. Why does this annoy people?
They're all right.
Well, of course, they're all conceivably right, aren't they?
Oh, is it
but it's just a way of asking whether you care about apostrophes.
Well, the grocer's apostrophe is supposed to be like...
They put them in where they shouldn't be, supposedly. They put, like, potatoes and put an apostrophe there or something.
This doesn't bother you, does it?
It doesn't bother me.
It bothers me.
Does it? Yeah, it bothers some people, yeah. Some people
like
write
genocide.
books and get incredibly annoyed, and they form societies for the protection of the apostrophe. And
there's one actually in Dublin, I don't know if it's a grocer, but something like that, and it's G-R-O-C-E-R, and then there's a comma, and then the S. And you go, you knew something had to go in there. You knew something had to go in there, but you couldn't. And it's like, it looks like a dead apostrophe. It looks like... But this guy had printed the sign. He'd obviously written out the sign and then gone to a sign printing company and went, whatever.
Sign printing companies, you'd think one of the requirements of being a sign printing company is having a basic knowledge of where an apostrophe goes.
They know, I'm convinced. All sign writing companies know, for example, how to spell accommodation. They must. And I reckon when they say, OK, we're doing a sign for your guest house, would you like our normal service, or would you like our deluxe gold 5 times the price service? Well, we'll check your spelling for you. And everyone goes, no, it's all right, I'm not going to pay 5 times as much for you to check the spelling. They go, OK. Inevitably, OK, we're going to paint the word accommodation the way you've put it there, are we? In the knowledge that they'll have to get called back all the sooner when the people finally realise they've got it wrong. It's just every time you see accommodation properly painted and misspelt, the sign writer knew. Was bloody minded. He'd putting it out there wrong, knowing he'd get a repeat gig all the
see how long he's been looking for a flat.
There are very few situations in which this is vital. There are very few times that you will run in and go, where are the grocers? And they go, well, there's only me. But your sign implied that there was more than one grocer.
Exactly. You're so
I'm looking for 3 grocers.
Yes, that's the minimum I need in this situation, not just one.
People have been ridiculing what's called the grocer's apostrophe since the 18th century. The Oxford Companion to the English Language notes that there was never a golden age in which the rules for the use of the possessive apostrophe in English were clear-cut and known, understood and followed by most educated people. Never. So some people have actually, like Birmingham, have abolished the apostrophe.
Oh, yes, I read about this.
Yeah. Now, are there any places in America where they have an apostrophe?
Well, they have places that are called Something's Creek.
Yeah.
Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, for example. Only 5 places in the whole United States have an apostrophe. One you might have heard of is quite well known. It's a tourist resort on the East Coast, a very upmarket, shishi place in New England.
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard is the right answer.
That has an apostrophe.
And there are 4 others.
Dave's Vineyard.
Martha's Garden, Martha's Kitchen.
There's Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. There's Ikes Point, New Jersey. The captions are nowhere near where the places are. John E's Pond, Rhode Island. Carlos Elmer's Joshua View, Arizona. Clark's Mountain, Oregon. And those are the only ones.
So everywhere else they said don't bother with the apostrophe.
Yeah.
It's just confusing. Makes it
It
not
seems
look like
so.
a place name.
Yeah, it would seem so.
I wouldn't bother with Carlos Elmer's. Joshua View works fine, doesn't it? Why the hell do you need to have Carlos Elmer's specific view of Joshua? Take Joshua up, let's all have a look at him. We'll all take Carlos Elmer's view of
Fine
this.
view of
Yeah.
Joshua. Anyway, there you are. That's enough apostrophe. Many people are annoyed, apparently, by punctuation errors in signs, but others claim that the grocers are at the forefront of the evolution of language. How can you be sure that an apple isn't actually a pear without tasting it or opening it up?
Well, some apples get deformed into a sort of pear-shaped way.
There are round pears. I mean, that obviously is a very pear-like one on the right there. That's clearly a pear, I think. But there are round ones.
Is it that you can't do that twisting thing with an apple?
I think pear stems do tend to come off more quickly, don't they? But there's a really interesting way, and that is...
One floats and one doesn't
Which
float.
one floats?
Apples float.
Apples float.
Apples float, is it?
Dunk apples.
Bobbing for apples, exactly. And it's better work. I'm going to be so embarrassed if it doesn't.
Oh, it's like Brainiac.
Whoa! Float!
Wow, it's gone really big.
floats.
Wow, why is that?
A pear.
That's a weird-looking pear.
That's like a...
That's wrong. Okay.
Oh,
6.
son.
There you are. It seems that the pear is denser. It's somehow odd. You think of them as sweeter and lighter and so on, but actually they're just structurally more dense. And you may try this at home and get a floating pear or a...
Don't go to a green
Or a
grocer's.
sinking apple, but please don't write in. Write to the British Apostrophe Society. They'd love to know about it.
Someone invites you to play a game of pear bobbing. Basically,
They're trying to drown you.
Walk away!
Apparently, up at Owlswater, they did pear bobbing at about 50 metres.
Yes.
The police decided not to do it.
invited a load of strangely dressed dwarves. Pear bobbing.
Yes.
But oddly enough... Oh, I'm going to put this back down here now. Oddly enough, the oldest variety of apple in England is called a...
Granny Smith, Bramley, Cox.
No, a pearmain. And that's going to bring us on to our next question. Yesterday, I went to the supermarket, and all I wanted was a loaf of bread and some milk, and I came back with a small jar of truffle oil, a pot of organic anchovy.
I remember that day, that was
Yes. and a flagon of fermented essence of Vietnamese sucking goat and a small curly-headed chap. When all I wanted was bread and milk. What was going on?
Early onset dementia, Stephen, which I think that's what it is.
It seems
They're
so.
very clever with the way they put things in the aisles and they catch you out. You end up with a Swiss
yes.
roll you had no intention of buying.
Precisely. There is a huge science to the placing of products. There's a thing called a Grün transfer. There was a man called Victor Grün who was generally considered the father of this whole business. Apparently men buy things from higher up. They're also more likely to pay more. So everyday things that women are more likely to buy are at 3 to 4 feet, and the more expensive premium goods are higher up. The men will pluck those, say, yeah, that's good, that's the best, that's the most expensive one, that must be the best, because we're stupid like that. And the women will say, well, that's a good price, I'll get that one. It's called
and
the
they also
Grün transfer.
they play different music during it because you're more or less price sensitive at different times of the day. They play different music. It's more kind of sedate supermarket-y music during the afternoon, but by half an hour before the supermarket closes, they speed up the music in order to make you shop faster. And also the people go bip, bip, bip quicker because the music develops a beat. So they actually,
Start playing the Crimson Tide music. People shot like their lives depend on it.
It seems we're all victim to this. I mean, I have to confess, I like to think of myself as an independently minded person, but I've gone into these shops wanting 4 things and come out with 20. Which of us hasn't?
But they make them look nice, but then you go home and enjoy them.
Oh,
It's
that's
not like
true.
You go home and go, this is just tar. Why the hell do they make me buy it? It is still a packet of biscuits. You go home and go, thank God I bought that nice packet of biscuits. I can have that now.
Yes, there is an element to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, we give out them as if they're being foisted upon us, like, and the guy in the mirror, they have bought our tar biscuits again. Take all good things off the shelves, only tar from here on.
Anyway, that's probably enough about that. Shops have a number of tricks up their sleeves in order to trick us into buying things we don't need. And when you've fallen for them, you're the victim of a green transfer. And now it's time for 5 items or fewer of general ignorance. Fingers on buzzers. What are trees made of?
Wood
is the right answer. Yes, well done. Well done. You see? And what is wood made of?
Carbon?
Yes. And where does the carbon come from?
The earth.
The earth?
Yeah.
No, you'd think most of what makes a tree was drawn up from the soil in nutrients.
It's air, is it?
It's actually the vast majority of everything that makes a tree comes from the air, yeah. Photosynthesis, which breaks down the air and leaves the carbon. And that's the carbon that makes a tree, so it is made of carbon. It's quite surprising, isn't it? Yeah. Good. What makes Australian spiders so dangerous?
It's their cunning and their organisation, Steve. And the fact they're willing to put the man-hours in. They will stalk you for weeks. They'll look for patterns in your behaviour, and they'll strike when you least expect it. Just as you're hovering over a poorly bee, holding a shoe high, that's when they'll come and bite you in the bum.
You mean the spider is working with the bee?
Yes. The bee is saying, there's not much longer left for me, but you could have a bit of fun here. Come on. Come in and bite him.
So is it that they sort of hide in loos?
Well, not deliberately, but the only real danger they seem to threat these days, since 1981, when anti-venoms were introduced all around Australia, there are 2 very poisonous types. There's the redback and the funnel web, the famous funnel web.
very,
People's
very
reaction.
There's the redback.
Is it the way that people...
Yeah, that no one has died from a spider bite since 1981. Yeah. No one in Australia. But people have been in accidents, which have been fatal, some of them, and certainly have caused enormous damage from spiders that have dropped out of sun visors in cars and fallen on people, and they go, "Ugh!" like that, and then crashed. So that's their danger now, oddly enough, not their venom. And so it's time for our guests to reap what they have sown. I'm going to have a look at the old scoreboard. Oh, my good night. It's a tie for first place, ladies and gentlemen. That hasn't happened for a very long time. Not since all round here was green fields. And in first place, it's the 2 Ds with 3 points each, Dara and David! Congratulations. In a very craveable third place, smelling of roses still, at -6 is Rob Brydon. It's going down to the bottom of the garden to eat worms with -8 is Alan Davis. That's it from Rob, Dara, David, Alan and me, and I leave you with this quotation from Eric Morecambe. My neighbour asked if he could use my lawnmower, and I told him of course he could, so long as he didn't take it out of my garden. Thank you and good night.
Revealing more of Samuel's dirty deeds as he develops his master plan, a double bill of heroes here on BBC 2 Now.